famous treated hospitals and child and adolescent psychiatry specialist consultant training, that's the CCT, at the Tavistock Clinic, London. She has a BSc and PhD in medical anthropology, that's impressive, and MSc in psychiatric research, oh my God, and she is the author of the book Suicide in Palestine, Narratives of Despair, and several published articles in international peer-reviewed journals. She's passionate about developing efficient, evidence-based, and culturally sensitive mental health services in the UAE. Please welcome Dr. Dabbagh to chair the session.
Welcome everybody. Thank you for coming back from lunch. We've got a really fantastic session this afternoon, a little over an hour, but we're going to be crossing continents. We're going to be, going to some exciting places today, with quite a range of different topics. Thank you very much for the kind introduction. It's always very interesting hearing your biography being read out loud. You sort of think, oh, there's another story behind that, but anyway, thank you so much for coming. I hope you're enjoying the conference so far. So, this session is going to be started by Timothy Seth, and he's going to be talking about a case study treating historical trauma in Native Americans, unlearning what was taught in graduate school, and collecting case studies of practice-based evidence. So that's the first session, but before doing, I'm going to do Timothy Seth's biography for you. He prefers to be known as Seth, and he is a descendant of Catawba Indian Nation in South Carolina on his mother's side. He holds a master's in marriage and family therapy and is a licensed marriage and family therapist in the state of Washington. He is a psychotherapist, clinical supervisor, and program development supervisor at Cowlitz Tribal Health in Seattle. Seth is passionate about unlearning the traditional and mainstream tenets he learned in graduate school and changing the paradigm of mainstream mental health in Indian country. In his opinion, all clinical work is systemic, and it takes a systemic approach to be effective in Indian country, and I'd say around the world. So he strives to incorporate any and all people who are important to his kids' lives. Without further ado, welcome Seth.
Thank you. My name is Seth, and it is an honor to be with you today. Today we're going to dive right into learning objectives. We're going to learn about tribes and nations in the United States, Canada, and Alaska, historical and intergenerational trauma, maladaptive reactions to trauma, and the state of Indian affairs. Also mental health treatment in Indian country, what we can do as helpers in unlearning, and how to create increased efficacy with tribal clients. Like I said, my name is Timothy Seth Studley. My mother's name is Lula Marie Studley, and her mother's name is Margaret Taylor. And the reason I introduce myself in that way is because if it weren't for them, I would not be here. And I am a descendant of the Catawba Indian Nation in South Carolina. It is an honor to be here in UAE. First time here. It's a wonderful country. Thank you. I'm also a psychotherapist. Psychotherapist, a clinical supervisor, and a program development supervisor for Cowlitz Indian Tribe in Seattle, Washington. And I was told that I do not have 40 minutes, I have about 20 minutes, so I'm going to try my best to squeeze 40 into 20 today. Quiz. How many tribes are in the United States? I don't really expect anyone to know, but it's a good introduction. There are 573 federally recognized tribes in the United States. This is the area that I'm talking about. I will not include Mexico, but I will include the United States, Canada, and Alaska. Roughly how many tribes are in the Arab region? Anyone know? There's too many to count, I assume. How many people here consider themselves tribal people? Can I see a show of hands? Okay. A couple. I mean, if we go far back enough, we all are tribal people to some degree. Who has had experience in the Arab Peninsula working with tribal people? Mostly everybody, I'm assuming, right? Have you noticed the differences between working with tribal people and non-tribal people in a mental health care setting? Yeah, the differences are very palpable. Like I said, there are 573 recognized tribes in the United States, and 62 state-recognized tribes. The total American Indian population is about 2.9 million, roughly 0.9% of the United States population. And I am Native and Caucasian, mixed race, we may call it, and Native and one or two more races comprise about 5.2 million of the Native population in the United States. Tribes, also known as sovereign nations, have a very unique government-to-government relationship with the U.S., which I'll get into a little later. These areas in green are current reservations in the United States. And about 500 years ago, this entire area was green. I'm going to, of course, talk about colonization and westward expansion and that. But most of the tribal people do live on these reservation settings and then major metropolitan cities across the United States. And to understand tribes and nations within the United States, we first have to go back. We have to go back about 500 years. And we have to talk about things from yesterday to understand Native Americans today. And that would include colonialism, genocide, U.S. government relationship, and broken treaties. Estimated numbers of indigenous people in the U.S. approximately around 1492, before the westward expansion of Columbus, was approximately 50 million to 100 million. Those numbers are probably higher now. I'm sorry, those estimating, the estimations are probably higher just as we learn more about indigenous populations in Mexico, Canada, and up in Alaska. Historical and generational trauma. Has anyone ever heard of historical and generational trauma? Okay. Dr. Maria Yelverse-Braybar first conceptualized historical trauma in the 1980s. She defines historical trauma as a cumulative, emotional, and psychological wounding over the lifespan and across generations, emanating from massive group trauma. Historical unresolved grief is the grief that accompanies the trauma. The historical trauma response is a constellation of features in reaction to a massive group trauma. Historically, Native people have experienced disproportionate rates of homelessness, economic instability, poverty, unemployment, and other disparities. This common experience has contributed to an intergenerational effect whereby successive generations of Native people have demonstrated ongoing health-related disparities. Please imagine, if you will, your family of origin, your aunties, your grandmothers, your grandfathers. Now imagine that your great-grandparents, pre-contact of colonialism, pre-westward expansion, were forcibly removed from their lands. And your grandfather resisted, he fought, and he was killed. Now imagine your grandparents were taken as children from their new homes without consent and forced into boarding schools where they were not allowed to speak their language, practice their religion, wear traditional clothing, or sing songs, or even pray. In these boarding schools, they were physically abused, verbally abused, emotionally abused, and even more. The tragic thing about these schools, and this is one of several dozen schools, boarding schools in the United States, they were run by the Catholic Church and the United States government. And the main focus of these schools was to take these indigenous children and to kill the Indian and save the man, to erase their culture, to have them assimilate into the modern dominant culture. And another poignant thing about this photo is throughout the dozens of schools that we see here, this is just one example. And I could guarantee that there's a high probability that I, personally, have seen descendants of these children and treated them in some way or some form form or fashion. This school was not far from Seattle, where I have my practice, so it is not too far-fetched that I do see the descendants of these kids in this school. All the photos except that Carlisle photo are original. They're taken from, I took them myself, and they are group activities that my kids and I did, and I like to use original photos to really bring the importance of this work home. This is a teepee, and this is a traditional camping ground that we've been going to for over a decade, where I host outdoor experiential group therapy. And like I said, we've been seeing the same kids for near a decade, and new kids come along every single year. The CDC, Center for Disease Control in the U.S., found that nearly 12% of deaths among Native populations in the early 2000s were alcohol-related, compared to 3.3% of the national average. Now, what we have here is a real example of the disparity of the maladaptive reactions and health problems within the Native community. And the Native community comprises of 0.9% of the American population, yet we represent the highest numbers of maladaptive reactions. Native youth are arrested at a rate of 3 times the national average. Indian youth have the highest suicide rate among all ethnic groups in the United States, and is the second leading cause of death for Native youth aged 15 to 24. All this isn't gloom and doom, I promise you. But again, we have to paint the picture of the state of Indian country. Verbal, physical, and sexual abuse are among the highest in the nation for Native women, and oftentimes this type of abuse does go underreported, so we can speculate that these numbers may be higher. Native individuals are often faced with the challenge of navigating healthcare systems within the realm of cultural integration based on the dominant views of culture. We can speculate what that often leads to. It leads to high levels of mistrust. Most Indian people resist being absorbed into the mainstream culture. Mainstream mental health services, which are predicated by dominant cultural assumptions, are unacceptable and ineffective with many Indian people. Services offered by state and county agencies are often not appropriate for Indian clients. When mental health providers are unfamiliar with tribal lifestyles, family values, and communication styles, there's a high probability of misunderstanding. So after that first intake, that mom, that child, that auntie does not come back. So if our clients are coming back, what good are we? Not all is negative in Indian country. Between 90 and 2000, income levels rose by 33% and poverty rate declined by 7%. Total number of Native students enrolled in universities more than doubled over the last 30 years. I'm a first-generation college student and a first-generation graduate student, so I'm being included in that statistic, which I'm proud to say. This is Mount Adams in the state of Washington in the United States. Again, this is part of the outdoor experiential group that I've been able to take kids to for over the decade. GOM 2007 espouses that Native American communities may require a great deal more of the kinds of professional services that do not yet exist. Personally, this is very exciting to me because as someone with the in-depth knowledge of Indian country, I get to create the programs, I get to create the groups that I know will work for my clients. Sue et al. Says that working with culturally different counselors must break away from the narrow definition of counseling and activities to be effective. Coleman and Mirza also stated that integrating culture with professional practice is an ethical responsibility. And this goes back to if our clients aren't coming back, it would be unethical for me to continue practicing mental health in a way that I know are not inviting my clients back. So what are we to do as mental health practitioners, as professors, as doctors, as people who see these clients in the social services field? We change the face of mental health service in Indian country. And as I speak, I would like you to translate Indian country into the Arab country, in the peninsula. Let's skip that part. We do this, we change this by using practice-based evidence and utilizing enculturation as a stress buffering force. Enculturation is a term that is associated with the re-traditionalization Now into the modalities and culture in practice. This is a traditional sweat lodge. Again, this is one of my kids. This is one of the ceremonies that we do. Sweat lodge is a ceremony and tradition practiced by many Native American tribes in the United States. The cultural and spiritual significance of this tradition is personal and different for everyone and differs from tribe to tribe. So I will not try to pigeonhole or put one group in one category. There are recorded high levels of alcohol abuse within Native communities, both in rural and urban settings. Treating alcoholism with sweat lodge is just one example of how traditional medicines and traditional healings can be more efficacious than mainstream Western modalities. And this appeared, traditional SUD and alcohol programs do not appear to be effective in Native communities. However, traditional therapies such as the sweat lodge appear by client report to be effective. Several researchers have espoused multiple physical benefits of sweat lodge, which include increase in temperature, blood flow, heart rate, cardiac output, cardiac stroke volume, systolic blood pressure, while decreasing diastolic blood pressure and pulmonary congestion. Shift Moore looked at the impact of the mental, physical, emotional, and spiritual domains of group sweat therapy. Results indicated a significant increase in spiritual and emotional well-being. Oftentimes, in Western mental health practice, we only focus on the spiritual. It is my practice to incorporate mental, spiritual, physical, and emotional into the practice. There are things said in here that would never be said otherwise. Quick, brief case example. This is an intentional intervention sweat lodge ceremony. It's usually guided by elders and a therapist. It is a 4-stage process that usually lasts about an hour and a half, and each stage lasts approximately 15 to 20 minutes long. We call them rounds. And in each round, prayers are offered for the elders, for others, for yourself, and then lastly, gratitude in a circle. And this is, remind you, a very intense group therapy process. And from a mental health viewpoint, there are numerous tenets that can be extrapolated and construed as beneficial for the client and the practitioner. Sweat lodge therapy is group therapy at its best. First foods, hunting and gathering. Again, this is an elk. It would be similar to an ibex, I believe. No, or gazelle, gazelle that you have here, except it's much larger. It's like a large horse, but it's a traditional animal that we hunt. Cattleman County and Wren state that Native people have experienced major changes in diet over the last 200 years and even more in the last 50 years, resulting in chronic obesity, type 2 diabetes, and other health disparities. Crone states that traditional foods are important for treating chronic disease and finding balance. And how we use traditional foods as an intervention is we plan out what is seasonal. We plan out how we're going to go as a group. We plan out how the client's treatment plan can be tied back into first foods intervention. The hunt, the gathering, the solidarity of the group lends itself to an intense group experience. Another one, canoe journey. This is a canoe. A canoe was a traditional mode of transportation in many tribes in the Pacific Northwest. The canoe journey is a revival of the traditional method of transportation and is a significant cultural experience for all participants. Each year, a different nation, a different tribe, a different sovereign nation, hosts canoe pullers, support crews, and other visitors from regional tribes. Depending on the distance, the trip can take up to a month. On arrival, visiting canoe families ask permission to land, often in their native language. The celebration includes songs, dances, food, and gifts, and usually lasts 7 days. I've been a part of several canoe journeys. This is a curriculum that we use. It's an 8-step curriculum that incorporates the mental, spiritual, physical, and emotional aspect of the person. The most recent one I did lasted 14 days, and it was literally about 8 to 10 hours of intense group therapy process for 14 days straight. We covered about 400 nautical miles, and each elements of mental, physical, spiritual, and emotional were addressed daily. This is one of the landings here. This is a smaller landing. It was at the very beginning, but usually there are approximately 75 to 100 canoes and thousands of people. We also use sage, sweetgrass, and tobacco. These are used in ceremonies and in therapy to clear the energy of the room, to pray and meditate. And oftentimes in Indian country, whenever we start something, there's an opening prayer and a closing prayer. And we use these traditional medicines to do that. Unlearning. I feel very passionate, I feel very strongly about unlearning things that we learn in graduate school, and also things that we pick up in managed care agencies and state and government supported agencies. At least in the US, this is a real struggle for us to practice this way and go against mainstream tenets, and then also advocate for our clients that this type of therapy really works. And in my opinion, it takes a paradigm shift to practice comfortably in Indian country, and other minority groups too, for that matter. Items to remember when working with tribal clients, any tribal clients. Indian country is a collectivist culture. It's not an I, me, mine. It's a we, our, and they culture. There's a concept of 7 generations, and the way that I was taught, I'm the middle of the 7.